I would say don't get hyped. Don't be fearful. Just understand that AI is here to help. It's not going away. So no matter what you want, how you think about it, it's staying here. And so you might as well learn it and get good at it. And to some degree, get good at it and understand what it can do and how it can actually be impactful and helpful for you. That's the number one thing.
Welcome back to the Dataliction Podcast, where leaders learn to grow their businesses on purpose by turning data into action and then action into growth. We are continuing our series on artificial intelligence, or AI, and today we get to learn from someone who sees AI and that landscape from the inside out. Tyler Reed is a software engineer, a creator, and a teacher who has built a whole community around making these hard topics real simple. His work in agents, frameworks, automation, and the practical AI implementation is really helping thousands of people understand what is possible. We were so impressed by how clearly he breaks things down and how he openly shares what he learns. And now, our conversation with Tyler Reed. Tyler, thanks for joining us today for this episode. I'm so grateful to have you here. How are you doing today, Tyler?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Getting ready for the holidays. So
okay, great. Yeah, we're recording this in the midst of all of these holiday times. So, in case people want to timestamp this, it's after Thanksgiving and before Christmas, in the middle of the schedule where there's always something every night and you don't know what day of the week it is. And so, Tyler, you feeling that same thing right now, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
With kids and everything, it's you lose track of that very quickly and easily.
Yeah, losing track of stuff is pretty easy with families. Travis, thanks for getting this teed up. I want to give you a chance to just kind of tee up the whole conversation with Tyler. I know you guys have chatted before, and you're the one that kind of got this episode scheduled. Our listeners are so grateful for the way you continue to do that, Travis. But set us up on what caught your interest for how Tyler is going to help all of us learn today.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, John. And Tyler, thank you so much once again for being here. I know you caught my attention. I'm scrolling late at night on YouTube and I'm looking through different channels and everything. I'm trying to figure out some new strategies and how can AI impact, all of us in the world. And I stumbled upon your channel and I was like, oh my goodness, I've at least got to have a conversation. I stalked you on LinkedIn and I was like, can we at least have a quick 2 minutes of your time and to see about, what is going on in the AI world. I love how you're a developer. You have definitely that developer mindset. And I think that super sets you apart from, I'm going to say, the posers out there, but maybe a hot take on there, because you really understand what's going on in the background. And I just thought that was super, super impressive. And I just wanted to have a really good conversation and just talk about what you're seeing today in the landscape of AI, and also just kind of from the developer standpoint.
Yeah, I cannot wait to dive into this. Let's set the stage on this idea of where you came from, Tyler, because none of us were doing AI 20 years ago. I mean, maybe you were, Tyler. I know that I was not. And a lot of people, most people, knew of AI as a movie or of, a science fiction concept. But obviously now fast forward to today, your YouTube channel, it's Tyler Reed AI. Is that right? Is that your YouTube channel?
Yep.
Yeah. So
That's correct.
It's in the name. Tyler, how did you get here? Give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So I had moved for my first professional job. So I've professionally been a software engineer since January to February 2018. And so I started out at IBM, and then about a year and a half later, I wanted to move. So after many interviews, I eventually landed at JP Morgan Chase. That required me to move to Florida, which was a 16-hour car drive with whatever I could fit in my car to move. So I did that, and then being a new spot, I was like, I need to kind of occupy some time, because a month later, COVID happened. So now working at home and everything else at home, So I started a channel to teach computer science topics because one thing that I feel like when I see in the education space is there are a lot of hard topics, or to some people, it's relative to the person. And
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like if you go through that same thing, but you can teach it in a way that's easier to understand, then that was kind of my goal is, yeah, sure, some people definitely know more than me, but if I had problems with something, then I know that other people can kind of maybe benefit from my point of view and make it teach a little bit easier for them to learn. So fast forward a few years later, I'd taken time off from YouTube from that, and I saw a video on an agent framework called ChatDev. It was the very first one I ever made, and it was interesting because you can actually be in a like in a game world. You can chat with other like characters in there, like you would making calls to an AI model would respond back, and that was very interesting. And so I basically came back to YouTube and was like, let me just learn this for a week. So I did. I made a video on it, and it kind of did really well. And I was like, okay, let me get started. Let me just keep at this. And then I got onto AutoGen, which was a team at Microsoft. They had created this same thing. It was way more, well, at the time, in my opinion, it was way more developed. And so I kind of just decided to really learn that and just really teach that. And then eventually that kind of led me on to teaching the progression of where we are at right now with frameworks and how we're using AI, productively using AI.
Tyler, that's incredible. Two
Yeah.
quick things about this that I want to draw out of you was first,
Hmm.
your open-handedness to share. I see a lot of gatekeeping, deliberate gatekeeping in this space right
Mhm.
now. And was it simply that you felt the pain of those gatekeepers out there that made you want to open up the door? And then also this principle of you using YouTube as this kind of at home university and certification course. Like you are doing two things that are very different. Instead of trying to go sign up at your local university for some development shop, you're
Mhm.
like, no, I'm going to watch videos, and then I'm going to share videos. Where did that mentality come from? Like, where did you get that?
Yes. Okay. So good question. Whenever I was kind of coming onto the space, or if I wanted to learn something, um, sometimes you like the way somebody says something, but a lot of times it can be like, okay, now buy my full course to kind of get all of this. And so that, I understand the principle behind having a business and all that, but for a lot of things that I thought should be free knowledge that should be shared. And so my goal was to let me learn it, go through the troubles so that maybe others, either they've currently through it, they have been, or this is just going to be something new to them. I can teach them in a way that they can maybe, hopefully, more easily grasp and get into, so they can start developing and get past those problems. So I thought, let me just do all this and just share as much as I possibly can.
That's
So yeah,
incredible. I've said it, I think 3 times now in this conversation. Travis probably keeping track.
thanks.
Thank you for sharing and doing this. Obviously, Travis and I are passionate about helping people learn. That's
Yeah.
what this
Right.
podcast is for. That's how we serve our customers and just people that we meet all the time. So thank you for being someone who keeps your hands open and keeps your brain open to keep learning and then just sharing that knowledge. That we need all of that. I want
Yeah.
to talk about agents. You referenced that
Mm.
a couple times so far, and Travis's attention was really caught on to that.
Mhm.
Travis, what were some of the things that caught your attention initially when you first heard that idea of agent versus automation, of course, because that's similar. Travis, what caught your attention? And then throw some questions Tyler's way just about his mindset around what's truly useful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, John. And really, what caught my attention is a lot of companies right now, or even individuals, are a little bit confused on, kind of the agentic space. And they're trying to build out agents. And I was on a call just yesterday with a company who actually does build out different agents for organizations. And they were going through it, and they were saying, wow, you know what? It seems to be really difficult to be able to help to actually build these things out. But Tyler, what I stumbled upon with your podcast is you start breaking this down, and you make it simple. And I would love to, maybe if you could explore that a little bit, unpack that on maybe some people that are out there, they're thinking, I'd like to break into this. I'm just using GPT to write my emails, but I need to figure out other ways in which I can actually do what everybody's talking about. Maybe kind of break down what actually an AI agent is, and like, maybe some steps on how people can start thinking about building, and maybe some of the myths that people have, or maybe preconceived notions that they might have.
Yeah. Okay. So I think let me start by saying what automation is before I get into the agent real quick, just to get some background. So an automation people have been doing forever. A lot of people just call it scripting. So you just write up a script that will do the same thing every day, such as a good example is let's say a financial analyst, and that they get in the morning to get an email. There might be an automation that maybe queries their internal database, says, here's everything that happened yesterday, or here's all the data. But then they have something that puts into an email in a nice format where they can read it, and then they can go from there with whatever they're going to do with that data. Okay. So that's an automation. That's something that's receives the same structured input and is going to give you the same structured output. Okay. Every time. Right. It's just the actual data is the only difference, but everything else is going to be the same. So then whenever we talk about an agent, the idea is that the input won't always be the same, and it will be able to decide autonomously on its own, based on the input data, what it is going to give back to that person, or whoever is using it, it's going to give back to them. And it depends on what it's capable of doing, which is all dependent on how we build these agents. Wow. And so the basic things that maybe like comprise an agent would be to give it tools, right? Tools are what allow it to connect to any data outside of only what the model knows, because every model has a cutoff date of its knowledge, and that's only what's publicly accessible. But such as if I work at Chase, we have an agent has obviously no idea what our data is because it doesn't have any access to it. So in order to give it access, we would create an API or something that would give it access to that data. And so then once it has that data, then we could do something with it. We could have it analyze it. We could have it generate a report as well, or, and then have it email. We do various things with that, but an agent needs to have tools so it has access to the outside world to actually be productive and useful for really anybody solving a problem.
Yeah. And so I want to understand that maybe help us understand when you're trying to set up an agent and you're putting them into their, giving them the right tools and everything. What are maybe some use cases maybe the layperson can think about in using for agents in the field today?
Yeah, no, so that's a good question. So I'll take a personal experience for something I did for a client. Is she was spending $10,000 a month on voice or virtual assistants, and so instead of having these people going in and doing all this research online and then analyzing that data and coming back with her and her having to correspond with them. Everybody's a different time zone, so you don't always get something back right away. Instead, it was, okay, let's create an agent that she can say, oh, I need you to research XYZ, and then I need you to copyright that into an email. And then here's also some examples that I've done really well. So take your research, take these examples, and then give me something back. And so whenever I create this agent for her, I set it up so it could access her Google Documents, it could access her Google Sheets specifically for her, and then only give it specific access, so it can't just do everything. And then that was able to help her save lots of money. She could call it whenever she wanted to, and it was actually giving her some return on investment as well. So the idea is that I gave this agent the ability to use her software that she wants to use, and it could call. It was able to make calls to Google Docs to update something for her instead of having somebody else have a shared view. They go in and do it. We can just have an agent do that by itself.
Hey, what is the balance between something that's a good use case for an agent and something that's a bad use case? Because obviously that works. Your client is happy. You did a good job. If you're bringing this up as your use case, I love it. That is immediately making people's ears tingle with like, oh wow, I don't think I've ever heard of that. Or maybe they did hear about it and they maybe thought it was not true. That is exciting in a lot of ways. But then people may start to, you give them an inch and they take a mile. Where is the line between like, not necessarily what's not possible? I don't think that's maybe the wisest question. It's based on your experience, where is just not a good use of this? It's maybe just you're overthinking it, you're over automating it. That's a
Right.
bit, that's better to be human. What are some of the ways you've seen people try and fail using agents because it's just not a good fit?
Yeah. Okay. So good question. So I think the first thing I would say is if you're making agents, it actually has to solve a problem, right? So first thing is if you're developing something, it has to actually solve a problem. I've made hundreds of agents from a personal use that probably nobody else, it would help nobody else. It just for me to learn, and I even sometimes I build it. I'm like, okay, I'll never actually use this again. That was stupid, but I learned something in the process, right? But let's say that I have a client, they actually need the help solving a problem. My first thought would be, what can I automate with this? Versus what do I actually need an agent for? Do I even need an agent to help them solve this problem? And I can, if you're okay with it, I can bring up another client that I had where there is no agent involved. It's just automation. And so her problem was that she was a mom. She is a mom of a couple kids. She has her 9 to 5, and she makes she was making Instagram reels for working out for moms to help them get back into the shape they were. And so the problem was, though, she wants to schedule all these, but at specific times of the day. So then she would have to not only just make it, but then she'd have to log on during work hours, maybe. You wouldn't even always get to. You don't get the breaks. And then hopefully schedule it or upload it at that point. So when I got with her, I was like, she wants to be able to create reels at one time and then just schedule all of them throughout the rest of the week. And so with that, that was simple. That was just automation. I thought, I don't need any agent for this that is going to overcomplicate it and maybe even slow the process down. So here is just, she uploads, I told her, we came up with a solution, which was to upload everything to Google Drive. I'm going to grab Google Drive. I'm going to look for it every so often, periodically, like maybe every hour. And if there's new videos there, it's going to automatically schedule that to Instagram at the next available time that she had predetermined. So now she only has to worry about making the reels and then just put them into Google Drive, and then automation will do the rest of it. And what that did for her return on investment was now she's freed up from the stress of trying to schedule them at a specific time. Now she can just do research. She can only focus on research. And not that I had a lot to do with it. It was really her, but now she's had several shorts that are over 5 million views. And now with this automation, she can also do TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, Facebook, right? And that she didn't do anything extra. It's just part of the automation that she can now use all these other platforms just from automation instead of having to just focus on one. It made it easier, no extra steps for her. And again, this was a lot simpler, just developing just basically a script or automation rather than creating an AI agent to do that.
You've brought up
So that
one of
was,
the greatest points of this whole new space of leveraging technology. And I'm saying leveraging technology instead of AI or agents or automation, because at the end of the day, AI has simply gotten people more interested in leveraging technology. Because I know there's someone out there who's labeling the process that you just explained as automation. Someone's calling it AI somewhere, but I
yeah.
appreciate your technical expertise there. I would love to ask a question, and Travis, you may even have more detail on this. I am generally very open to leveraging technology being connected to my files and myself, my digital self. Okay. I've pasted in tons of content to create clones of myself in GPT and all these different things because I write a ton, I talk a lot. I like this. I'm personally comfortable with the safety and security protocols that I see. That said, there are a lot of people that are super nervous out there, and probably correctly so. What are some of the ways that you can encourage people on how to stay safe? Because we do have to make sure we're keeping track of things for our
Mhm.
customers, for ourselves, our families. But that said, we shouldn't, completely run away from everything because there is a little risk. We would never get in a car and drive everywhere if there was zero risk. So, walk me through your security protocols, what you keep an eye on, how you make sure and keep things safe. People can be interested in that definitely after hearing those two stories from you, Tyler.
Yeah. So I think something that I don't believe gets talked about enough, and it's guardrails for your automation, or really for anytime you're making an LLM call to do something, you want to have guardrails with agent LLM simple calls. And what that means is that, let's say we're talking about security. Um, well, if for the instance, you are onboarding people to your company, and you have some files about, like, here's our company policies, here's XYZ that we do here. And instead of you maybe directing them to all these documents, you can just have a chatbot that has all of that information, and they can just talk to the chatbot. So whenever they want to talk to the chatbot, you only want them to be in the domain and space of what those companies are, your policies are, for onboarding them to your company. You don't want them to be able to start asking it random questions that could be detrimental or could give them something back about your company that is not good, that you don't want them to have access to. And so these guardrails that you would implement would make sure that whenever they send a prompt to this chatbot, that it's going to look at that, and you're going to have some rules about what it's allowed through. And if it's not if it can't be successfully go through those rules, then they're trying to do something that they're not allowed to. And the same goes for if you have tools for your agents or part of your LLM calls, and they're going out and getting information, you want to make sure that there's no personal or some information you don't want anybody on the outside to see. So you also want guardrails on the output. So it's like, hey, if there's like account numbers for some reason or something, you want to mask those at the very least, or just remove them completely from the output. So then they don't see that. So that
And
would
are
be
you
the
gonna
one
mask them
thing
with
for sure.
tokens, or are you masking them with, like, just removing them? And then Travis, I'll get out of your way because I know you're loaded up with the next question. But yeah, are you tokenizing? Like, what are those guardrails specifically? And if you could get as simple
Mhm.
as Michael Scott on the TV show The Office would say, tell me like I'm five. What are those guardrails?
Yeah. So first off, you probably shouldn't be something like pi data should really never even, generally speaking, should never be sent out from an agent to possibly be a part of the output. But that's why guardrails are here. In case something like that does happen, then you would either want to just completely erase that from the output itself, or if some in certain very specific cases where it's absolutely necessary, then you maybe only want to show the first four account numbers and X out or asterisk out the rest of the account number or something. You may not even want to do that. Really, that probably doesn't even part of it's probably not even compliant, potentially. So, but yeah, so you just, if any data that should be secure and private, doesn't even have to be necessarily account numbers. It could be anything like information about somebody or about a company or whatever that is. You just don't want them to see. Then you need to have ways to ensure that people don't see that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tyler. So I'm going to switch gears here just a little bit. And I know that, some of the compliance issues, the person who's going to be working in this necessarily is not, hopefully we're not sharing out social security numbers, in our private,
Yeah.
own agents. So, but just switching gears here a little bit, when we're talking about building out some of these agents, what tools do you find, to be maybe easier than others? Or maybe some that are, like on more cutting edge, to help build out
Mm.
some of these agents.
Um, yeah. So, okay. It's a good question. I think some of this depends on the context. So, for instance, I work at Chase as a software engineer. So if we were to make an agent that had access to the database, then to read specific data, we would not want to read everything. We want to read very specific things. So we would need to modify the access of this agent to make sure it only has specific data available to it. And then if we have people that would be able to access that, it would need to only um, return as the output to them when after it's being called, whatever that may be that we need. So we would not want maybe amounts of data are okay, the type of transaction that it is, things like that. But we would not want that person to also be able to write to the database, for instance. You definitely don't want to do that. Um, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so
So,
I'm also curious, like, not only like when you're writing in there, like what are some of the things that, I know that when you're working on YouTube and you're showing some of these examples, are there certain ones, or even certain platforms that you like to work
mm,
in, like N8N, Make, what are the ways that you like to work and build these things out a little bit? And then I've got a leadership question coming up.
mm,
So,
mm,
I just wanna understand,
okay.
because we work with a lot of leadership teams and, some of the things that, we like to uncover is, what are some things that leaders should, make sure they have the right frame of mind when we're requesting or trying to build out, agents?
Mm. Okay, so that's a couple parter question. So
Sorry.
also going back to the last question,
Yeah.
so I'm sorry, I realized I don't think I necessarily answered that well. So database access agents are, I think, very uh, are are very useful for any company, right? Because you store your
Mhm,
data somewhere. So
mhm,
in order to be able to access that or potentially modify it depending on what you need from this agent, those are very useful agents. Anything such as like software called Confluence, which is used professionally in a lot of companies to store documents and data of absolutely almost anything. Having access to that, um, you know, whenever as a developer, everybody has Kanban boards or some sort of to-do list for things that you want done, something of that nature. And
mhm.
so being able to have an agent that could speak with that, update those, give you a report every day of like your team, how they're doing, what they need to do for that day. You could even individualize that to each person, send that out. And then before you even have meetings or when they come in today, you already have it. And for instance, a sales team that I had worked with, the the sales leader, he needed help um, getting everybody on his team individualized reports of who they're messaging that day, who do they need to call, who do they need to follow up with. And so basically access this database of information. It would look at it and send out a Slack message individually to each person on his team so that they knew when they got in what needs to be done for that day. And that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Like that, for instance, is very helpful for sales teams. Very.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome. I need that for my life. So
You do, Travis. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
So Tyler, I would love to know a little bit about really focusing on leadership. And that we talked to a
Mm,
lot of leaders, and one of the things that, is constantly on their minds is we need to implement AI. We need to implement AI. But they
mm,
they don't necessarily, maybe they have a good idea, maybe they use it personally, kind of have a little bit of shadow AI going on. But what are some of the things, what would you say to leaders that are wanting to go into this new phase of kind of where we're at, with technology? What would you tell them to say, here are some of the priorities that you should make, and giving them an idea of like, what is it that they should probably maybe start thinking about implementing first?
Yeah. So I've seen this a lot professionally where new like key terms or something is popularized and then all of a sudden you see it in headers of emails. It's just everywhere and all of a sudden it's like it's got to be implemented. And the thing is, just because something is new doesn't mean it's going to help you, right? It doesn't mean it's going to help your team. It's helpful. The reason why we have so many things to work with, the reason why there's so many agentic frameworks is because some of them do specific things. There's not one silver bullet tool or whatever it is that's going to fix every problem, right? That's why we have these different variations of agents and different ways to use AI. So what I would say is take a look at what you're doing that is mundane. Take a look at what you don't like to do every day and what can you automate or what can AI help with to reduce the time of that, or maybe, for instance, we go back to the sales team. So you maybe don't want to have a salesperson spend an hour calling back everybody as follow-up. You could have a voice agent, for instance, that can do that for you. That's to save you time. That would actually be helpful because now your sales team can spend more time trying to make sales instead of doing all this like kind of like grunt work, so to speak. That needs to be done, but we can have AI help us do that instead of having your team do that, where they can actually do what they're supposed to do, is help make sales, right? In that instance. So what I would say is, just as a leader, take a step back. Don't look at the hype around anything AI, because every day something new comes out. And if you looked on LinkedIn, everybody's going to tell you that every new thing is the best thing out there. And that's just simply not true. Just simply not true. Just by of what it is, it's not true. So take a step back, understand what's actually going to help your team. Like I said, start out with the basic things of what you can remove time away, like what just grunt work, like I mentioned, and then start there. And then once you start saving time that way, you'll understand how it's actually going to impact and help your team. Like, just take that step back, see what you guys are actually doing on a day-to-day basis, record that, and then see what AI can actually help with on those.
Tyler, the
That's
balance between hype and fear, and even the similarities between hype and fear. Here at Dataliction, we love AI for what it actually is, and we are not afraid of what it is not. And so that said, I would love to end our conversation today with what excites you most about this new world of being able to leverage automation, AI, agents, all these things. I guess I'm making the assumption you are excited, Tyler. But that said, what are some things you would love to encourage people who are listening? And again, especially leaders. Most of our listeners are leaders. So what can we tell them to stay excited about and don't be afraid?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So first off, we just talked about hype, fear versus hype, right? So you can get hyped every day. Don't be excited, but if you get hyped, then you want to start doing things that aren't maybe necessary or not helpful. So, and typically, but with that being said, is I'm all in on AI. Like, I use AI to help me develop at home. I use it when I can at work. I use AI. I try to implement it as part of my day-to-day thing, what I do day to day, as much as I possibly can, if it makes sense. Then I do that. So the fear can kind of, well, everybody's got a fear of AI, of what it could possibly do, especially if you watch the news. Like, it could possibly, there's always going to be some fear there, but you'll have less fear if you just start using AI. It can be something as simple as just chatting with ChatGPT, seeing what it can do, and then maybe start implementing some. There are, like you mentioned, there's Make and A10. There's all of these things that you see all of these ways that AI can help. I would recommend just focusing on a couple. Just focus on one or two things. Just understand it and get good, because I promise you that if you understand one of these no-code builders, or you want to have somebody use an AI agent framework to use code to build out these things, you'll be able to solve 95% of your problems by just learning that one thing and getting good with it, and then using it in your business. because one of the hardest things is jumping back and forth between all these different models. You have Grok, you have OpenAI, Anthropic. There's all these local models you can use to be free, 100% local, private. There's so many different things you can do that you just need to focus on a couple of things and just get good with that. And that's would be my recommendation for anybody even learning AI, is that now I do a lot of different things because I'm trying to teach how this possible, what you can do. But anybody that's ever asked me, I tell them just I give them one framework to be good at and just do that. And then you can build anything that can help you forever, really. So hype, I would say, don't get hyped. Don't be fearful. Just understand that AI is here to help. It's not going away. So no matter what you want, how you think about it, it's staying here. And so you might as well learn it and get good at it. And to some degree, get good at it and understand what it can do and how it can actually be impactful and helpful for you. That's the number one thing. Is everybody has all these automations and agents you could use. 99% of them aren't helpful for you. Just figure out what will actually be impactful for you. That's what I would.
We teach best what we need to learn the most. And you are the prime example of that, Tyler, of finding a need and filling a need. Thank you for teaching me today. Thank you for teaching Travis. And thank you for teaching everyone who's going to click on this episode because they want to learn. Travis, any final closing thoughts for our listeners? Tyler, anything like that as we wrap up today's episode?
No, I really appreciate that, John. Tyler, thank you so much for being on here, answering my questions. Sometimes I ramble on, but I really appreciate it as you are diving in, especially as we think. I love not focus on what will help you, not all the new shiny objects. I'm taking that away for today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. So thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I think one of the things is if you were to search any video or many things that everybody says you can make money doing this, make money doing that, just focus on what is actually going to help you, and then you'll find the return on investment for you and your business or your team or whatever that may be. But yes, that would be my number one. That would be my biggest takeaway from here as well. Yeah.
And now for the people who do want to find you, Tyler, what's the best way for people to get connected with you? Make sure and leave your calling card for us so we can go find you, start learning from you, and subscribe and everything. We always love giving a chance for people to add more names into their list of learning resources. So how do people find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on YouTube, and we mentioned that at Tyler Reed AI. You'll just look up Tyler AI. I also have a free school community, which I will leave. And this is just for anybody that YouTube kind of is a platform, is great, but it's not very community based. Like the comment section is really the only place where you can text or type anything about a video if you have questions. So if you have built a free school community so that people could more easily ask questions, if you have answers, I'm there to technically help you with those. And I'll leave that for you as well.
Tyler, thank you so much. We'll include all that information in the show notes. But for today, Tyler, an incredible conversation. Thanks for being a great guest.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it here. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. Thank you.
I am so grateful for this amazing conversation with Tyler. I know me and Travis both walked away with so much today, and I hope you did too. Here are our top 3 takeaways. First, agents and automation, they're not the same thing. Knowing the difference can save companies lots of time, money, and frustration. Second, guardrails are essential. Safe inputs and safe outputs are what keep AI dependable in real work. And then third, leaders should ignore the hype and ignore the fear. Focus on the areas where AI removes wasted effort and then creates real impact. Hey, if this episode was helpful to you today, please be sure to like, share, and then subscribe. Please leave up to a 5-star rating on whatever platform you use for your podcast learning. It's truly one of the best ways that you can help us continue to share our knowledge with others just like you. And then also, I mentioned this once, but please be sure to share this with someone else who is stepping into the AI conversation. We'd encourage all of you to keep following this series as we keep exploring what an intelligent business really looks like. At Dataliction, you know that we help companies grow on purpose by turning data into action. And right now, that action is learning how we use AI with confidence and clarity.